Folks, it's my coach used to say it's go-to time. It's go time now.
Welcome to the Kyle Olson Show. 3 days. 3 days until we decide Michigan and America. Last week, I wrote at Breitbart News about Maurice Davis, the vice president of the Flint City Council. In an interview with Charlie LaDuff, he expressed his support for President Trump. The usual suspects came out and called him an Uncle Tom and a bootlicker and demanded he remain on the Democrat plantation. Well, he refused to do that. In fact, he left the plantation and went to a stage with Vice President Mike Pence. Here's Maurice Davis on Wednesday at the Vice President's rally in Flint.
What an honor to be standing before you at a serious time like this in the world. Pandemic, the China virus or a plague. I even caught it and was in intensive care twice. The narrative has been spent. This is not a game, folks. President Trump, Vice President Pence. God used whoever he wants to bring his people out of whatever the problem have to be. Right now, the narrative been spent. President Trump is full of hate. Let me tell you something. The Democrats is full of hate. I'm tired. I've been a Democrat. I am a Democrat all my life. 64 years. Last 4 years, I voted for Hillary Clinton. This year, I decided to go with President Trump. I'm not a bootlicker. I'm not an Uncle Tom. I'm none of those things. I'm somebody that's in a poor, impoverished community. President Trump, thanks to my good friend, Charles LaDuff out of Detroit. I was doing a piece on closing liquor stores early because I live inside of a crime scene right here in Flint. People are in foreclosure right here in Flint. People are losing everything. And when Mr. Trump said, "What the hell you got to lose?" he was talking to me. He was not talking to my seat. Only thing Maurice D. Davis got to lose is a council seat at $700 every 2 weeks. But this is what I got to gain. Instead of being a divided state of America, it's time to be the United States of America. Do y'all understand what I'm telling you? I don't want to hear fault. He without sin cast the first stone. We saved under grace. God used whoever he want to, such as times like these. Vice President Pence, the Trump administration, they reached out to me. Our water crisis has been silent. I've been before probably 170 million people in a couple of days. Interviews everywhere, and people accuse me of being selfish. People dying right here and have died. We're tired of suffering and nobody give a damn about poor folks. President Trump, they rushed out with nothing but love from y'all all over this nation. I don't want to hear another time I'm a Trump supporter. I'm an American supporter. Y'all have more love. Now, the Democrats call me every name but the child of God. And I'm going to shut up because I got 2 minutes because much more I could say. But I'll tell you one thing. This nation is one nation under God. One nation under God. Thank y'all for listening. Thank you. Thank you.
Here's what I said about Flint on the September 12th episode of The Kyle Olson Show. Here was Michael Moore in 2016.
I think the people of Flint are ready to come out of their homes right now and go down there. They want their government back. They want their mayor back. They voted for these people, and they want this governor arrested. They want this governor prosecuted. And thank God the Obama administration now has got the U.S. District Attorney in Flint investigating what's going on, investigating the governor, and our hope is that this governor will be prosecuted for the reckless behavior and for knowing for a full year that this was toxic water.
So now, the guy progressives hate so much has endorsed their candidate for president. What to do? What to do? Joe Biden's campaign is so tone-deaf to all of this, he has embraced the endorsement. They touted Rick Snyder's USA Today op-ed to reporters. They want the Rick Snyder endorsement because they think it will peel off Republicans in Michigan. Let me ask you a question. Did you like Rick Snyder? Did you like voting for Rick Snyder? Would Rick Snyder's endorsement sway you in an election? Joe Biden's campaign apparently thinks it will. But what they don't realize, which should be very telling about their tone deafness for how people really feel in Flint, is that Rick Snyder's endorsement should backfire on Biden. The Trump campaign should pump advertising into the Flint market with that endorsement because residents will turn against Biden. If Trump can flip Flint, he'll win Michigan. To me, it's really that simple. So here's what President Trump tweeted on Friday. Quote, "I would never have taken the endorsement of the man who, through gross incompetence, poisoned the people of Flint, Michigan. Former Rhino Governor Rick Snyder should be ashamed of himself and his service. I was asked to help fix it, and he did. Biden took his endorsement. Vote Trump." There you go. On Thursday, I went to an Evangelicals for Trump event in Granville. I live-streamed it for Breitbart. Eric Trump was there, and I'll be talking to him a little bit later. A surprise guest was Ben Carson. He gave a great speech about America, black victims, and white guilt, and even dunked on LeBron James. Listen to this.
Every one of us has a sphere of influence. There are people you can talk to. You know, they always say you're not supposed to talk to people about religion or politics. Wrong. That's exactly what you're supposed to be talk to your family on Thanksgiving, on any other time you talk to your family, you talk to your neighbors, you talk to your co-workers about the things that are important to you. Not about sports and entertainment. I mean, that's okay, but really, is that what life is all about? Doesn't matter that much if you can sink a basketball. You know, I was listening to one of the news programs this morning, and LeBron James was saying something about, would you ask Ben Carson to play basketball? Well, I wouldn't ask him to do neurosurgery. I can tell you that.
This is my last episode before the election, and it wouldn't be complete without reviewing Governor Gretchen Whitmer's new coronavirus edicts. And really, to me, they represent the crossroads we're at as a state and a country. Sure, the Supreme Court slapped her down, but do you think she cares? No. Republicans in the legislature, where are you? Michiganders are begging for help. Where are you? Trick-or-treating is happening shortly, so let's review what our dear leader is instructing us to do. This is from WILX. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services says to use duct tape to mark 6-foot lines in front of your home and leading to the driveway or front door. They also recommend positioning a disinfected distribution table between yourself and trick-or-treaters. Homeowners should also consider handing out candy in an open space where distancing is possible rather than from the front door. One other recommendation was creating a PVC pipe chute down the railing so you can keep your distance from the greedy rubes coming looking for free handouts. That's my interpretation. Gretchen Whitmer would call them future supporters. Those who do not feel comfortable distributing candy should keep their porch lights off during trick-or-treating hours. Yes, the Grinch will make an appearance a couple holidays early this year. Other orders say indoor gatherings are now limited to 50 people, and she's requiring restaurants to collect contact information so she can track you. This election is not just about Donald Trump and Joe Biden. It's about freedom versus progressivism. It's about individual liberty versus the tyrants who want to lecture you about how to hand out Halloween candy. 3 days. 3 days. This is the Kyle Olson Show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Kyle Olson Show. Jerome Hudson, my colleague at Breitbart News, has a new book out titled 50 Things They Don't Want You to Know About Trump, and he joins me now. Jerome, thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be back on.
So your book has 50 chapters, all accomplishments during President Trump's first term. One that I think doesn't get a lot of attention but could be very consequential in Michigan is Chapter 5, Trump's EPA gave $100 million to fix the broken water infrastructure system in Flint, Michigan. Tell me about that.
Yeah, and it is important to say that there are a lot of theories about how the Flint water basically became so lead-laced, but it took the election of President Trump to actually fix the problem. As I write, I quote our colleague, John Hayward, who basically did the right thing in squarely blaming the leadership in Flint, which had existed for decades, top to bottom, was Democrat controlled. The mayors, the city managers, the city council, anyone who should have been held responsible for just how poisonous Flint's water was, the decisions, the policies that they put in place, the regulations that they all promoted, it lays at the feet of the Democrats who ran that city. What's particularly interesting, Kyle, and I wasn't able to actually put it in to this chapter, but Michael Moore squarely put the blame on Barack Obama. Barack Obama visited the city. Rick Snyder was booed before he brought Barack Obama up. But when Barack Obama drank that water, you could see on the video, and you can hear the audible gasp from the crowd. John Podesta, I'll say, told Michael Moore he does not know why Barack Obama went to Flint, drunk the water, and then got back on Air Force One without the problem ever being solved.
Mm-hmm. And what was interesting about that is so many of the residents, as you say, and Michael Moore had that in his one of his recent movies. I saw a podcast from Maurice Davis, who is vice president of the Flint City Council. He said he's supporting Trump. He said that Flint needs Trump. But he said in 2016, then candidate Trump his first stop in Flint was to the water plant because he wanted to see what was going on. But then you have the president of the United States, Barack Obama, come to Flint, drink the water, and basically say, no, there's nothing going on here. And the activists were completely deflated. He just completely undercut, their whole position. And what I think would anger a lot of Flint residents now is the fact that Governor Rick Snyder, who was Michigan governor at the time, and whom they blame for the water crisis, has endorsed Joe Biden. What impact do you think that will have?
Yeah, Rick Snyder, just quintessential Republican in name only. He's endorsing the guy in Joe Biden who was vice president when his boss, Barack Obama, just basically flew in for a photo op and didn't actually fix the problem. It should enrage everyone, no matter what side on the political aisle that you're on. Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is that Joe Biden, on his watch, failed to help the people of Flint, Michigan. No, it was the Trump EPA that granted the $100 million grant to replace Flint's bad pipes. The thing about federal grants is that they come with strict stipulations. And so the city, being, under the watch of the EPA, they finally hired a competent contractor. And the problem isn't 100% solved, but it certainly is far from what it used to be. And, Hillary Clinton on the campaign's trail in 2016 used this issue to beat Republicans over the head. Mm-hmm. When there was a Democrat in Barack Obama in the office, Joe Biden vice president, a Democrat-run EPA. But the good news is that President Trump got elected, and as you said, he solved the problem.
Chapter 15, Trump has been tougher on Putin than Obama was. In what ways?
So I highlight, just how ambivalent and belligerent the Kremlin had been leading up to, I go so far as their invasion of Georgia, and I highlight how, Russia hacked the Pentagon, they hacked the Joint Chiefs, they hacked the White House, Kyle. They even got access to Barack Obama's personal calendar. And I sort of set that stage to basically lay out the situation that Donald Trump found himself in terms of relations with, I think our number two adversary in the world, China being number one. Russia had been interfering in elections. I write about it in my first book, actually, since 1992, and they aren't particularly good at it. But the president actually issued sanctions on about 24 Russian oligarchs, Kyle, in response to the Senate investigation, the DOJ investigation that did find that there were Russians tied to the trying to influence a 2016 election. You just didn't see that type of force from the Obama administration, and in fact, you saw the sale of 20% of our uranium stockpile to Putin's Russia under Barack Obama. The president has continued to enact sanctions on Russia, but beyond that, President Trump nixing the Iran nuclear deal, Iran, a huge ally for Russia, and also it also hurts Russia's ability to actually sell oil. It's a huge oil trade partner. The president also strategically dealing with the civil war in Syria. Again, Bashar al-Assad, president of that country, another ally of Putin's. So the President Trump actually, instigated sort of a multi-pronged and multifaceted approach to dealing with Putin, weakening Putin's and Russia's allies, as well as Venezuela and Cuba, but Iran and Syria particularly. And now that country is the economic strain of those sanctions and the weakening of Putin's allies. They're really feeling it in that regime.
So your book, 50 Things They Don't Want You to Know About Trump, talks a lot about Trump's economic record, because there's a lot to talk about there, especially pre-coronavirus. But let's take two chapters together. Chapter 49, median household income reached over $65,000 in 2019, the highest level on record. And Chapter 26, the poverty rate for Black and Hispanic Americans dropped to an all-time low in 2018.
Yeah, what's really interesting about the median household income is I use that number because it was actually a private sector company projection of what the median household income would be. I had all of my last drafts into HarperCollins, but real take-home pay for the typical middle-class family, the numbers actually came out last month, actually. We were talking about an increase, Kyle, of roughly $5,000, and the real median household income actually rose to $68,700 in 2019, far outpacing 2017 under Trump, which was a record high, as well as 2018 under Trump, which was a record high.
50 Things They Don't Want You to Know About Trump is out now. Pick it up today. Jerome Hudson, entertainment editor at Breitbart News. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is the Kyle Olson Show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Kyle Olson Show. Censorship has been raging this election season on Twitter and Facebook. And joining me now to discuss the free speech alternative to those is John Mates, CEO of Parler. John, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on.
So there were hearings on social media censorship in the U.S. Senate on Wednesday. What was your reaction to what took place?
Well, as usual with these hearings, I have mixed emotions because You know, our whole message behind Parler is to be a free town square for people to communicate openly. And anytime government kind of gets involved in these kind of private enterprises, it's a little bit troubling. For me, I don't know necessarily that government involvement is the answer, but I understand people's sentiment and why they're so concerned. And personally, you know, I'm an advocate for market competition and competition in the marketplace in general.
But what happens when you've got these giants? And I tend to agree with you. But what happens when you've got these giants who can just, I mean, basically, you know, wipe people out of existence, at least, you know, digitally? How should that be handled?
Well, we did give them that power by choosing to use their platforms. The one thing that I found a little bit interesting about the conversations that a lot of these senators were having with you know, Twitter, Facebook, and Google, it's interesting because only a few of them were actually on Parler and promoting alternatives, but all of them, even during the hearing, which I thought was interesting, were promoting Facebook and Twitter to watch their live streams. So it's really interesting that although they're having a lot of stern words, you don't really see them promoting the alternatives as much as, you know, they should. Senator Ted Cruz actually does a really good job of promoting Parler. He's very active on Parler as well. But really, everybody needs to set an example by choosing other places to go to. Because if you're going to continue to, you know, basically try to force their hand, accept content they don't want to cater to, you're looking at nothing but regulation as the answer. And frankly, I think getting the government involved in online speech is going to be the death of free speech completely, not these tech companies.
Well, and it's been said that regulation by the government is actually good for these companies because then they can keep their competition sort of at bay. Is that how you see it?
Oh, 100%. Facebook's the biggest advocate for regulation. They're sitting there going, this will solve all of their problems. They'll no longer have to worry about startups, really, trying to compete with them. They don't really have to worry about antitrust anymore because they just got carte blanche, like, you know, basically if regulation were there, they would get, you know, basically a hands off from the government because they don't need to get involved for antitrust anymore. So in a way, they actually really want that. Instead of people complaining to Facebook, because one side, you have to remember, the left really wants more moderation and more, you know, more burden on these websites. But the right doesn't want any, you know, right? They want less. And so for Facebook, regulation is the answer because they sit there and go, wow, every time someone's complaining about people's speech on Facebook now, they can take it up with the House and the Senate. And they don't have to take it up with Facebook anymore. And that helps them because they also don't have to worry about ad bans or boycotts. So they would like regulation. And I'm really against it 100%. I don't trust the House or the Senate to create good, fair, and competitive rules for people online. And
so how does because there's been a lot of talk about repealing Section 230 and basically treating the Twitter and Facebook in particular as publishers versus platforms. How does that factor into regulation and that discussion?
So the beauty of Section 230 is that it protects neutral actors from liability. Now, I'm not a lawyer, I'm an engineer, you know, and of course the founder of Parler, but as the founder, I like Section 230 immunity, especially for us, because we are a neutral town square. We don't weigh in on the content of the users. The users define or not the users, but the people on the platform define their own experience. And so the problem with Section 230 is that Facebook and Twitter are already in violation of Section 230 because they're not neutral actors. They're acting as publishers. So it's kind of a weird situation where you don't really need to repeal something that's just being ignored, if that makes sense. I mean, if they were following the spirit of Section 230, they wouldn't be creating rules to kind of, you know, kick out one ideologically, you know, one ideological group, if that makes sense.
Sure. Interesting. So on Wednesday, in that Senate hearing, Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey said that they had no evidence that New York Post story on Hunter Biden and his laptop was the work of Russian disinformation. But the company censored it anyway, and Facebook did too. How did Parler handle that story?
We didn't handle it any different than we would handle any other content.
Right.
It wasn't censored. It wasn't limited. There was nothing going on with it. In terms of problems at Parler, we don't get involved, whether it's left-leaning content, right-leaning content, whatever it is, it's none of our business to be fact-checking or to be validating the authenticity of it. That's for the community to have a discussion about. That's what our First Amendment is for, right? People can have a discussion about it. Our biggest problem that we have when it comes to content is just spam. And that's all we do is keep track of spam in the comment section. So if people are spamming stuff, that's the only time we get involved. Otherwise, it's up to the people to have a conversation about whether it's valid, invalid, Russian, Chinese. I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Sure.
So
how would you, how do you think that those companies should handle that? I mean, obviously you're a free speech advocate and hands off and let people say what they want to say. But what do you think the motivation was behind those companies, clamping down and censoring and all of that to that particular story?
Well, I think they don't want to get blamed for some kind of news changing people's opinion in the last minute and being spread the last minute before an election and being spread on their platform, because they don't want to be blamed for having Donald Trump win again, like they blamed Facebook and Twitter in 2016. And so for them, I think as a company, they are trying to basically kind of put on the brakes of any content that might, persuade people last minute, change their opinion, which is why you see them not allowing new ads in the last minute. You see them saying that the president is not going to be allowed to declare victory on any platform online. And people are not allowed to speculate on Twitter or Facebook as to who they think might win the election or have won the election. And they're only allowing, quote unquote, as Orwellian as it sounds, they're only allowing authoritative sources to tell them who won the election. So this whole thing is them both kind of protecting Biden and the left from any scandals that might come up last minute, while also kind of basically placing all of the authority to determine who wins an election in a handful of media outlets who have been very biased, extremely biased in the last few years.
So for the average person, it's somebody that has 1,000 followers or, maybe just their families following them or something. How should they react to that? Is it just simply leave the platform? Should there be some other response? How should that be handled?
Well, I think the first step is making sure everyone's aware this is happening. That's why we started Twexit.com and erasebook.info, so that people can learn about all of these different things in one place that these tech companies are doing to really hurt free speech online. And the second step, in my opinion, is to join a platform such as Parler that is promoting free speech and to dump Facebook and Twitter, because it's really not worth it. Every click that you make on that website, every tweet that goes out is contributing to their revenue. They need people creating content and using their site to continue to make a lot of money. If we leave, they're going to lose money. And that's something they'll listen to. They're not going to listen to a Senate hearing or a congressional hearing that has no real teeth. What they're going to listen to is people, boots on the ground, just leaving, voting with their dollars.
Mm-hmm. John Mates, CEO of Parler, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. Take care.
This is the Kyle Olson Show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Kyle Olson Show. I'm honored to have back to the program Eric Trump. I know it's crunch time, but thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kyle.
You and your family have been, I think, in every corner of Michigan by this point, with 3 days to go. Nobody can say you aren't working for the votes. How are things looking?
Yeah, we do work for the votes. We have great work ethic as a family, something our father instilled in us, at a young age, and we're campaigning incredibly hard. I can't tell you how many times I've been in Michigan, and I love it. I was there yesterday, in fact, and it's an amazing state with unbelievable enthusiasm. There's so much love in the state, and listen, I think it's going well, and I think people have to get out and vote. But I think we're going to have a beautiful day next Tuesday.
I was at the Evangelicals for Trump event in Grand Rapids on Thursday. I could tell from your face that there was a genuine appreciation for the overwhelming support for your father and your family in Michigan. What's your response to the huge crowds across the state?
Yeah, I mean, there are huge crowds. And by the way, that event, Kyle, was incredible. I mean, I did for everybody listening, I did a big Evangelicals for Trump event, and I mean, there was, I don't know, there must have been 1,000 people in that room. I mean, that was a massive auditorium, and it was. And listen, I'm sick and tired of seeing what people are doing to faith in this nation. I mean, faith is under attack in this nation. Our Constitution's under attack. Our free speech is under attack. Our Second Amendment's under attack. You have a guy from the radical left. He tries to portray himself not to be, but he wants to make his Elizabeth Warren the Treasury Secretary, and he wants to make Beto O'Rourke the gun czar, and AOC and Ilhan Omar will be making half the decisions in that place, but. It's scary. I mean, they want to raise your taxes by $4 trillion. They want to socialize healthcare. They talk about that. They're perfectly fine with people attacking law enforcement officers. I mean, they're literally throwing bricks at law enforcement officers in cities across the country, and they don't even say anything about it. In fact, Biden comes out and says, Antifa is just an idea. They're not real. They're just an idea, he says. And it's really amazing. And then you look at my father. I mean, my father's built the greatest economy, rebuilt the military, lowest unemployment, lowest African-American unemployment, lowest Hispanic unemployment, fastest, growing 401ks. You see GDP yesterday, 33.1% increase. It was the largest increase in GDP in the history of this nation. You see what he's done for criminal justice reform. You see what he's done pushing school choice and charter schools in this nation. You see the peace deals that are getting signed every single day in this country, 4 in the last 4 weeks. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Look what he's done with the southern border. You have the least amount of human trafficking ever coming into this country. Millions of people off of food stamps and government dependence, which is a beautiful thing. I mean, it's just a great thing for society. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but name a single thing that in 47 years Biden has done. I mean, the guy's been a politician 10 years longer than I've been alive. What's he accomplished? He gave $150 billion to Iran, a country that chants death to America, but what has this guy accomplished in his 47 years? I mean, why didn't he fix any of the problems of this nation? Why did it take a real estate developer who knew nothing about politics to come in there and, take care of business? And I think America realizes that. I really do, and I think that's why you have the enthusiasm everywhere. Not only my father goes, but all of us go.
Right, and so there's 3 days left. He's got to stop in Southeast Michigan on Sunday, and then he will be in Traverse City at 5 p.m. on Monday, and then the final rally of the 2020 campaign will be at 10:30 p.m. in Grand Rapids. Let's talk about Michigan. New orders from Governor Gretchen Whitmer say indoor gatherings are now limited to 10 people, and she's requiring restaurants to collect contact information so she can track patrons. And also, one of the other orders is don't talk too loudly. But your father has been very vocal about opening the state back up. Why is that important?
Listen, my father believes in America, and he believes in freedom, and he believes in people being able to go to work and play football and live life. As Americans, we weren't designed. We don't have it in our DNA. Americans don't have it in their DNA to be caged up and stuck in a basement for months and years on end. I mean, we indulge in our hobbies. You have states that are artificially keeping people locked down. And I'm telling you, people in Michigan are revolting over it. I mean, they are, and it's not just Michigan, by the way. It's Nevada. It's Pennsylvania. There's a lot of states where this is happening. It's driving people crazy. They want to be able to live their lives. And you have Joe Biden who's talking about a dark winter is coming. Kyle, he really said that. He said that the debate. You probably remember it. A very dark winter is coming. My father said dark winter's not coming. A beautiful winter's coming. And we love this nation, and we're going to fight for this nation. We're going to open up, and we're going to get back to work. And that's the mentality we need to have.
Right, and you've got young kids, and I've got young kids, and millions of kids will be trick-or-treating on Saturday. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services issued a number of guidelines for Michiganders for trick-or-treating. I reviewed them earlier on this show, but one says use duct tape to mark 6-foot lines in front of your home and leading to the driveway or front door. They also recommend positioning a disinfected distribution table between yourself and trick-or-treaters. Of course, this election is about President Trump and Joe Biden, but I think it's also about freedom and individual liberty versus progressivism and this nanny state telling us how to conduct our lives. What do you think is at stake next week?
Yeah, listen, I think that's right. I think that's right. Listen, as a country, we can be smart, and we should be smart, right? I mean, I think everybody wants everybody to be, very, very smart and do things. And you can be a little bit cautious with things. That's totally appropriate and reasonable. But people still have to be able to live their lives, and not everybody has the luxury of not being able to go to work. I mean, Biden says, just stay in your house and don't do anything and don't come out. Guess what? Not every American has that luxury, his luxury. The media will say that every single night. Not every American has the luxury of the media. People are working, very, very hard. They need to leave. They need to be present. They need to show up. But I'm telling you, it's turning a lot of people off. People want to live their lives and they want to get back to work and they want to get back to the American dream. And that's what my father fights for every single day.
Well, and I think that's what so many people are inspired by, because there's this optimism and there's this belief that you can do anything you want in life, and you just have to work hard. You have to apply yourself. People are seeking opportunities. Contrast a little bit his agenda and his outlook versus Joe Biden's.
Well, my father wants to have the wealthiest nation in the world. He wants to have the strongest military in the world. He wants to have the best schools on earth. He wants to have law and order in society. You contrast that with Biden. Biden wants to raise your taxes by $4 trillion, which would send people's 401ks, down the toilet. He wants to close down half the industries. He talks about, very dark winters, as I said before. They're more focused, Kyle, on banning plastic straws than they are on, fixing the nation's educational system. It's really kind of amazing how that works. And this is a very, very radical party. I mean, it's a radical party in every way, shape, or form. I mean, they brag about coming out. I mean, they literally brag about socialized medicine. There's 180 million people in this country that have private health care plans. And, Kamala has come out saying that she wants to take those private health care plans away. I mean, this is crazy stuff. Why would you do that? I mean, people like their private health insurance. And, and again, why do they never defend law enforcement in this country? And they don't. They allow them to have bricks thrown at them, and they never defend them. And people love law enforcement in this country. And so that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for red, white, and blue. We're fighting for our national anthem and our Pledge of Allegiance and people standing for our anthem. And, and we're fighting for people to get back to life and, football in this country and everything else. And, they're doing the exact opposite.
Why don't you think they defend law enforcement?
I think there's a lot of people in their constituents that it's not popular with. It's hard to believe. I mean, it's really hard to believe. Look at Minneapolis. It's like the greatest example, where you have the city council coming out and literally voting to literally eliminate law enforcement. I mean, they their exact words were they want to abolish law enforcement. So the city council came out. They voted to abolish law enforcement. Guess what? Crime went through the roof. And about 3 weeks later, they were back begging the police officers to come back. And that's horrible. They did the same thing in New York, where they took $1 billion out of the NYPD budget. They cut all undercover law enforcement officers. And guess what? Crime in 90 days went up by 300%. I mean, anybody listening to this could have told us that was going to happen. But there is a war on law enforcement by the radical left. They don't like them. They don't appreciate them. They attack them. In my home city, and I'm almost embarrassed to call it that, we have a mayor that was allowing people to go up with buckets of water and throw it on cops, and not allow those cops to do anything and defend themselves. I mean, this is horrible stuff. These are the greatest men and women we have in this nation, and we're behind them 100%.
So there's 3 days left. What do you need people to do in order to win Michigan?
Well, it's very simple. You have to go out and vote. You have to go out and vote. I'm telling you, we're going to win Michigan. We can win Michigan. We did it last time. People have to get out. Some of these states are going to be incredibly close. You have to get to the polls. Vote for the United States of America. Vote for our flag. I promise you, my father will never let you down. Our family will never let you down. And I hope everybody sees his work ethic and how hard he's been working. Again, versus the other side who, just doesn't have much work ethic at all. And my father doesn't need this job, but he fights every single day because he loves his country, and he'll never stop doing exactly that.
I agree. Eric Trump, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks so much, Kyle.
Thank you so much for joining me today. For more of my work, go to Breitbart.com or find me on Twitter, Kyle Olson 4. Use the same handle for Parler, Kyle Olson 4. The number 4 is for Bobby Orr, who endorsed President Trump this week, by the way. This is the Kyle Olson Show.